Bandai's Dallas Card Fest has come and gone, and with that, the largest Dragon Ball regionals held to date. And with that in mind, I have the top cut for both Saturday and Sunday's events, and some of the breakout decks look very interesting. So how about we take a deep dive into it? Looking over to Saturday, and first things first, a lot of these decks, no one's gonna be surprised about. Blue Vegeta is well presented, as well as androids, but there are some omissions that are interesting, and a couple of decks that broke through that really something we need to keep in mind. The first thing we'll see is that the most represented deck was Blue Vegeta, but on Saturday, matching was actually Bardock, and Bardock's representation was very solid across both days, having 4 decks break into top 16. No surprise there, as when you really look as to what Bardock ends up doing in this format, what it really is a 25k attacking leader that can clean up the card quality from the top of the deck. You can choose what you want to draw when you want to draw, you can bottom deck what you don't want to see, and circumstantially from time to time, you'll also be able to combo from the top of your deck, essentially equating to a net draw. So we will be taking a look at all the deck lists in just a sec, but just to break out the rest of the pie chart, droids at 3. Honestly, I suspected more, but a lot of people I'd definitely be leaning into the Blue Vegeta stuff, especially in North America. Going on, GT Goku represented by 2. I'm super happy about this. GT Goku being one of my favorite decks of the format, does definitely has his weaknesses, especially going into things like Blue Vegeta and even yellow decks, depending on what you face, but definitely feels like you can still play a game against everything. Not as represented as Bardock, because Bardock just kind of stands alone stronger as a better beater that doesn't need to be awakened to make a lot of his things happen. So on that side, not surprised there, but nevertheless, real happy to see some GT Goku here. Yellow Vegeta, which spoiler if you're in tune, Yellow Vegeta actually took down the entire event. So 1 conversion into top 16, breaking it through. Incidentally, they didn't face against Jiren, which we've talked about for a long time now. While Jiren may not be the best deck in the format, it is definitely one that you need to keep an eye on and can gatekeep away strategies like Yellow. Then to round it out, we've got Beerus and Gohan. So Beerus, no surprise there, will usually break out into top 16 in some way, shape, or form. It's just a solid deck that if you have a decent day in terms of being able to awaken when you want to, being able to apply the pressure the way you want to, you can control the board to a point where your opponent never really has a chance to play the game, and then that plays to your benefits. And then finally, Gohan. And I will say, I have to give Gohan the kudos it deserves versus the tier list. I think if I were to redo the tier list, I'd actually bump up Gohan 1 tier. I don't think it's above like a B tier deck, but it definitely performs in a way that you wouldn't expect. The 5-drop Gohan into the blockers actually plays out really well, because blockers are generally not good, but these blockers allow you to do more in the game, and they're protected by the 5-drop, even from things like a Zeno board wipe or anything like that. So I actually do need to give Gohan a bit more respect, especially since turns out he's represented both on Saturday and on Sunday. Shifting over to the Sunday decks, and things from here kind of centralize a little bit more. We have more Blue Vegetas represented, with 6 making it into the top cut, making it over a third of the placements. Bardock still represented at 4, androids breaking out another spot, to breaking in a 4th deck into top cuts, and then Beerus and Gohan once again, with Yellow Vegeta not being represented, unfortunately, and once again, no Jiren. So day 2 is much more tightened up around the pillars of the meta, but the fact that Bardock can back-to-back on 2 days represent itself in top 16 means that this is definitely a deck to watch. It's not like a one-time thing. The conversion rates for the deck are looking really solid, and I'm really excited to see what we find digging into the decks of how people have pivoted into how many Bardock screws to play versus kind of what techs are available, especially with the limited card slots of black. All right, now jumping into the deck list, we're actually going to be looking over Saturday's results and then jumping into the Sunday results after that. So here we have the winner deck list. Some notable things here: only 2 final explosions, the concessions here being the 2 Whis to deal with Jiren. I don't totally believe in that tech personally. I think you're better off trying to line up 2 final explosions than trying to line up a Whis that could potentially maybe get there depending on swings. It is a body that can attack twice, which has its benefits, but I'm not entirely sure that that's exactly what you want in that slot. No secret rare, which is a big surprising part on the opponent's side, but of course they did play against blue and managed to get there as well. 1 energy absorption, 1 blue power awakening, so definitely an interesting spread there. But what I do like is seeing the 4 boos. I've definitely been leaning on that card more as I've been playing yellow myself, and of course we've got the Bulmas, the Vegeta, and the Goku. So once again, I do think that this deck is super susceptible to Jiren, but if you don't end up facing it and you have a hot tournament run, you can get there. So once again, congratulations to the winner there. Looking over to some blue Vegeta. Of course, the blue Vegeta stuff, there's going to be a lot of very commonalities between what you do. I think the big text that we're going to be looking for is, are they playing 2 cost of Masu? How many sites are they playing? Are they playing any absolute lightnings and things of that sort? But generally, the power of the deck is very much, you're going to play some kind of tempo 2 drop into a Vegito, into a Gohan, into just slamming 5 drops over and over and over again. Here we can see that between a total 4-4 split of the Videls and the Vegetas, 3 Zenos, which I think is fine. I think you can definitely cut one and not miss it too bad. 4 Gallic Guns, 2 sights. The very interesting thing here, though, only running 2 Vegetas and 2 Vegetos, which I think is kind of absurd. Those are the best cards in the deck, but obviously by cutting into those is where you allow yourself room to be able to include more lower the ground stuff, is where you have the room for that 1 Absolute Lightning, a pair of Final Hope Slashes. So this deck very much leaning on more peel off recursion stuff, which, hey, at the end of the day, if you just want to do peel off recursion with Final Hope Slash over and over again, that can put a lot of pressure as well. Not much else to say about it. The peel off stuff's really good, and if you lean into that side of it more so than just doing your big 5-drop beat sticks, clearly that can still get there. Moving over to the next Vegeta deck list, and here we actually have a Pan as a tech 1-drop to be able to cycle more cards, some of the 3-drop Trunks, and here numbers that I expected a little bit more of, at least 3 of the secret rare and then 2 double strikers. But once again, we're looking at 4 of the crit Vegetas and then 3 Videls, 3 of the Gohans, 2 Scythes, and only 3 Gallic Guns. And I've been cutting on Gallic Gun personally. I'm in the same headspace where sometimes it just ends up clunky in your hand versus kind of doing the other looping stuff. Here, no Final Hope Slash, which again is kind of, do you want to lean more into doing 1-drop stuff or do you not want to, is where it's at. And then 3 Zenos. Moving over to GT Goku, and honestly, when you're playing in black, there's not too much tech there to really be discussed. The biggest revelation, I'll say, from black players over the past month of playing with the color is how important it is to be able to net yourself an energy marker if you are the first turn player, which is kind of why people have been leaning into Dr. Muse. I've been playing 2. I think 3 is perfectly fine as well, obviously with a max 4 of the Kakarot. And then how many cantrips do you want to play to kind of maximize on free combos for the 3-drop Bardock, which I've been leaning on the 3-drop Bardock more and more and more. Much less people are running the 1-drop Pan, which ends up whiffing more often than not, and I totally understand the logic there. Obviously, 10x Kamehameha, fantastic for those wide boards, but there's some level of top end that we can't deal with, which is why decks I've definitely been leaning on 4 of the double striker, just because it's additional removal. Of course, we're running 4 Hercules because peel off is good, even if it's just a limited version of peel off. And then in that 1-drop slot, you do have room to fiddle around with how many of the Giru you want to play just to be able to deal against 1-drops. I've cut on the card, but again, nothing too crazy there. I guess this one is 3 GT Gokus. I charge this card all the time. I don't play it on curve very often, so this makes sense to me. So in general, really the biggest thing you're doing with your black decks, you're going to be playing around ratios, at least when it comes to GT Goku. And then same thing in Bardock, right? It just depends on how much Bardock crew vanillas usually you want to include to actually be able to get his effect off. Going into the droids, there's kind of like 2 trains of thoughts with droids. It's how much do you lean into playing things like 5-drop Gohan to be able to play a bit of a mid-range game like we're seeing here, or do you just keep on doing what droids are doing and just leaning into 4-drop Turbo into getting into the late game? How much top end do we include? I like the one of inclusion of the board wipe here. I think it comes in clutch in a lot of different situations, but of course we do have the 3 Broly here on the top end and then the 3 double strikers, and people have definitely shifted over to the Cell Juniors to be able to kind of recur these different pieces as well. So something you'll notice maybe on a ladder too is that players won't necessarily be preventing themselves from doing things like Big Bang Attack just to be able to net on tempo. It may slow down their 8-drop turn by a smidge, but they do prefer just not letting the board get out of control, especially since that's really how kind of blue has been playing against droid decks. Shifting over to our next Vegeta here, biggest difference, 4 Zenos, 4 of the secret rare Vegetos, and then 2 Vegetas. And then on the bottom end, we only have 2 Gallic Guns and 3 Sickles. And then on the 2-drop slot, we are running 4 Videls, but we are not running the crit Vegeta, and instead opting to just have more cantrips. So just leaning into that early defense versus early pressure. Going over to the next Vegeta deck, and here we've actually got the Gotenks package. Very cool here. So the 4-drop Gotenks, obviously the 3-drop allows you to play the 4-drop, which then you're able to recur things like the 2-drop and then all of these wonderful 10Ks. So it's just really leaning into the recursion more and more and more. And in the late game, you're in a position where you can peel off into playing the Gotenks, into getting 2 additional 10Ks. So just leaning into that value engine. Only 2 Gohans, but we are also speccing into 2 Zamasus, and then 3 Sickles, 2 Gallic Guns, 4 Zenos, and 3 Vegetos. So again, it really depends on how much you want to lean into the recursion stuff. We're always going to have our curve of Vegeto, Gohan into 5-drop, but then how you fill in on how much you want to go into 2-drop aggro versus using the Gotenks package versus just using 1-drop cantrips a little bit more, really going to be the variation there. Then going over to Bardock. Bardock here, nothing crazy, will look very similar to GT Goku. It's just you may spec potentially into more Bardock's crew to get free combos on. But even here with this deck list, we're seeing, let's see. So we've got another 4 with this Bardock, and then another 4 with this Bardock. So not a lot of targets, just leaning into the good black cards. We are playing this one, which I've been on and off of whether I like this Bardock or not, but the cheap Awakener and then 10k combo can be kind of clutch. And then, of course, we're just using our leader to do good black things. You're still doing the plays of, hey, I'm just going to slam like Secret Rare if you give me the opportunity to and draw cards over cards over cards, but with a leader that's a little bit more proactive by himself, even if he doesn't have targets on board to be able to make things happen. Then we've got this other Bardock deck, which very similar lines, except here we're opting into the vanilla instead. I do like the idea of the vanilla just being a raw 20k as opposed to the Bardock that's a 15k that can then become a 20k, but the other one's a self-awakener, so I think the big difference there, not all that much. And then the rest of the deck looking very similar, running 4 of all of our SRs, and then just leaning in on our 4 top ends to be able to hope and get there. Then we've got Gohan. So like I've been saying, Gohan has actually been surprisingly better than I expected, especially when you lean on the 5-drop Gohan to then be able to play things like Trunks. I've seen a lot of people play Supreme Kai as well, just because you're able to block and get yourself some additional combo power if you're playing these Gohans specifically. So the fact that you can kind of loop that through makes it powerful. You have an answer in Jiren in things like the 3-drop Goku, which means that you're not walled out in the same way that other green decks are. And of course, you've got the defensive ability of your leader that can actually allow you to play a bit of a mid-range game if you're not really capable of going into that 8 energy threshold. One of the bigger things that people have been cutting on the 5-drop Goku, and a lot of decks have only been running 2, and makes a lot of sense. Very rarely do you have the opportunity to be able to play him. He's not good combo. His attack is kind of middling. So being able to have the opportunity is nice, but you don't lean on that strategy as much anymore. You're blowing up your energy and replacing them over and over again with these blocker Trunks, with this other 3-drop and the rest of your rank pieces. Shifting over to our next GT Goku, nothing crazy here. Honestly, no real changes. We're playing 4 of the SS3 as opposed to 3. No big difference there. I think the biggest thing is that we're only running 4 Kakarot and not playing any other cheap energy producers. So we kind of lean on that there, and then playing a pair of Bardocks. Not too sure that they do too much in the strategy, but if you really want to self-awaken for cheap, then that's your way to be able to get there as well. Moving on to the next Androids deck. Once again, what we're really looking for the changes between androids are they playing any 5-drop Gohans? Here, it definitely just looks like we're just doing the android thing as consistently as possible. And with this deck, turns out that's good enough. Then we've got ourselves the Beerus deck, and Beerus is incredibly solid, especially with this card. I hate this card so much, but it does seriously punish decks that are trying to aggro into Beerus by not only just being a self-awakener, but also because it allows you to be able to board wipe your opponent a turn sooner, which is a really big deal when we're working with the 5-drop Beerus here. Otherwise, of course, we're leaning onto powerful cards like Rumshi just to be able to keep the board clear. And something that I know some decks run, but some decks don't, is the 4-drop Jiren, because 4-drop Jiren is just an annoying body that allows you to draw an additional card, which can slot really well into the deck. We're not seeing that here. We're just honestly just seeing more beer stuff. Of course, we're running the Tournament of Power stuff, and then leaning into our 1 Kefla to maybe get some more explosive plays if we do end up seeing it. Margarita, incredibly powerful. This card has closed out so many games against me, and it's definitely something you need to be mindful for, that even if your opponent has low cards in hand, they still have the ability to either swing with her as a 20k, or be able to pump up something else to be able to close out the game. Next, Bardock. All we're really seeing here is that we all are running the 1-drop vanilla instead, which is very interesting. I would probably opt personally to go with the 2-drop instead, but I get it. Hey, just a cheap attacker in a position where you might deem it necessary. Otherwise, the rest of the deck is pretty standard. Biggest thing we're looking for is, are there anything like Dr. Muse? And it doesn't look like so. So we're just leaning on the 4 Kakarots if we're going first. Only 3 double strikers, which is very interesting because this card is so important in things like the mirror match and being able to actually deal with boards that black technically can't, depending on what is being played. And only 2 Para brothers. Woo! Congrats to this Bardock player, man, because he's playing something much spicier than what I would. Another set of droids here. We are playing 3 Gohans with a 3 Meteor and then 3 Kami. I've seen a lot of androids play no Kami. I've seen some do play Kami. I think it's fine in terms of against blue. You can punish their 1-drop play by killing it and then having it yourself for defense, or just to guarantee being able to apply pressure. So I don't mind the Kami, but of course it's not an android. So if you play, you just gotta be mindful about what's in your drop to be able to use your rampers. Shifting over to Sunday's regional, and this is actually the blue Vegeta that won the event. And here again, what are we looking for? 3 Zenos on the top end, 3 Vegetos, 2 double strikers. And then in the 2-drop slot, we do see the 4 crit Vegetas and the 3 Videls. How are we playing with our 1-drops? Well, we've got 2 Zamasus, of course our 4 Pilafs, our 4 Mais, and then we are playing the 2 Pans. And Pan I've been on and off with, but I do appreciate the level of cleaning up my hand that it does. There are some awkward late game positions you end up stuck with as blue, where you just have a bunch of zeros in your hand because of like the Gohans and the Videls and stuff like that, where you really just need combo power. So to be able to play Pan to replace those zeros by 5 or 10Ks makes all the difference. So huge congratulations to the player here. And then shifting over to the rest of top 16. Lots of blue Vegetas. We've got 6 of them to go through. Again, similar situation. 3 Videls, 4 of the crits. Here we are playing the 3 Trunks. Not entirely sure how I feel about the Trunks, but of course it's a thing that you can play on and off. Then we're moving over to Beerus, and holy one-ofs, dude. Okay, so this Beerus list is 60 cards and is playing every card that exists in the game. So 1 sphere, ain't no way, this has to be a meme, right? What? All right, I didn't actually peep the list before we got started here, but all right, so we're running 2 of the 3-drop Beerus, 1 Vegeta, 2 of the Belmonts, 1 Sphere of It is actually every red card. Like, there's no way, right? We're playing 2 Gohans with like 1 crit Goku, 1 Arena. I am suspect that this list topped. If it is, congratulations to the player who got there with this pile. But I am going to go off and say that maybe something else got linked here, or this player knows something that I don't, because this list blows my mind. But congratulations if you did top 16 with this list. Okay, so it is split. There's 2 here, and then there's 2 alt arts. So there is a bit of differences between the arts here. There's like this 1 Shin, this one here. There's a super combo here. But like nevertheless, you're playing like 2 of the Shin. You're playing 2 Gokus. You're playing 4 hits, I think, right? You're playing 3 of this one and then 1 regular art. So the arts are making this a bit finicky, but the ratios on a lot of cards, like 2 of this, 2 Mafubas, 2 time skips, 1 arena, 2 barrier, like it's suspect to say the least. But congratulations for your plays. All right, moving on. Here we do have Bardock. We are running only 3 Bardocks here, of course, 4 secret rares. And then in terms of what Bardock's crew are we playing? We are playing the 1-drop vanilla to kind of round that out. And then again, and by the way, you guys do not need to do this for your deck lists. Bandai doesn't care about the rarity of your cards. So when you guys submit your deck list for the tournaments, you don't have to bother with the alt arts unless you really want to. I'm just saying, for the sake of like the visibility and clarity of your deck list, it's not something you need to go ahead and do. Moving onwards, blue Vegeta. Again, so much of this in the tournament. 3 Zenos, 3 Vegetos, 2 double strike, 2 absolute lightnings, and 3 sickles. Otherwise, nothing too crazy here. Androids. We are running 1 of the board wipe. Again, I'm pretty pro board wipe at the moment. I think it's a great catch-up card, especially since androids can afford 1 turn of like backed up tempo just to reset the board. Then we're playing 3 Gohans and then the regular android package stuff here on the rest of the top end. Moving on over to Bardock. Anything crazy here? Nope, no 1-drops that enable you to create a marker. But then again, we are leaning into the 2-drop Bardock here. This may be the same players list, honestly. So congratulations to them for going back to back. Here, another androids list. Nothing too crazy here. 3 of the double strikers, 3 meteors. We've got 2 Gohans and then only 1 Cell Jr. and only 1 Big Bang attack, which I like too, but that's fine. And then of course there's the 3-drop Trunks for the turns where you can go Android 17, 18, like the 4-drop Ramper into one of those, and then 3 energy left to be able to go into a Trunks. Allows you to be able to pressure the board a little bit more. Moving onwards to this next blue Vegeta. Kind of the same situation here. We're leaning into the vanilla package here, actually. So we're playing the 1-drop Videl, which obviously allows us to be able to play the 3-drop vanillas here. We've got a 3-3 split between Gotenks and Great Saiyaman. Honestly, a smaller package than I'm used to seeing. I am used to seeing these decks run more vanillas. I'm not necessarily against playing a small Videl package, but obviously you do lose in a bit of tech that you're able to play. Here we're only on 2 sickles, no Gala guns, no absolute lightnings. So it does cut down on the amount of tech that we're able to play in our deck, or the options that we can play in our recyclable 1-drops for peel-off loop shenanigans. Then we've got this Bardock deck, which is only playing 1 double striker. No, okay, no, it's split between the alt arts. My bad, I gotta get used to this. 2 10x Kamehamehas. It does look pretty standard across the board. 4 of the dual attacking Bardock, 4 Kakarots, 4 draws, so on and so forth. I do think I've been on and off on the 10x Kamehameha. I've been on 3 lately, but obviously it doesn't hit anything with 4 and above. And with the amount of Androids that are there, it kind of plays as a dead card sometimes, unless they just leave a bunch of combo on board. Moving onwards to this set of droids, and we are on 4 Brolys, and then 2 Gohans. We are running 3 Vegetas, which I've seen some lists be on Vegeta. I've seen some lists be off Vegeta. Just something to keep in mind there. And then we got 2 Cell Juniors as our kind of mix-up techs here and there. Then this blue Vegeta looks a little bit more spread out, and that's because we are playing the Gotenks package. So 2 of the 3-drop into 2 of the 4-drop, which allows us to pick up Mighty Mask, allows us to pick up our Gotenks, and then the Trunks of choice is probably just the cantrip. Yep, does look like that's how we're leaning into. And then playing 2 Goku Blacks. I've been on and off Goku Black in my blue decks. Obviously, it's a much harder body for decks to be able to out, including the blue mirror, which is really nice, but it takes a long time to be able to get out and is a super dead card in your hand. So you do have to be a little bit finicky with that. 2 Trunks, 2 Gohans, and then 2 double strikers to kind of round it out. And then on our 2-drop package, we actually have 3 Videls to kind of help us out there with applying pressure. Moving onwards to this next one here, it does look like we're just doing more cantrip stuff. 4 Zenos, 1 Goku Black, 4 secret rares, and then 3 Videls, opting out of the crit Vegeta, but playing 3 sickles, no Gala guns, which again, I've been slowly cutting on Gala gun. I love it. It's a great way to close out games. It's a great way to recycle early card advantage, but it can be stuck in your hand quite a bit. Then we've got this next droids list. Nothing special here. We're playing 4 Gohans, so really leaning into trying to keep the board clear in that mid game. 3 Brolys, 3 double strikers. Then we've got our Gohan list here, and this looks like a very, very spicy list. So of course, like I was saying with the previous list, the core of Gohan list right now are leaning on 5-drop Gohan to then be able to play out your 3-drops and allow you to have a lot of extension with your blockers. When it comes to that deck though, that doesn't seem to be the case. It does look like we're only leaning on the 5-drop Gohan to be able to remove our opponent's board. So uses the ability to be able to remove 3-drops because it doesn't really look like we're utilizing him to be able to play out either the blocker Trunks or the Supreme Kai. So instead, just playing some good value cards. We're playing 2 of the Gokus here, and then 2 of the secret rare to be able to dish out more damage. And of course, Gohan can play out anything that's a 3 or lower. It doesn't necessarily just have to be a 3-drop, so there is room to be able to drop a Kami and get rid of an opponent's card and have some combo power backup, or being able to play a 1-drop cantrip to be able to cycle some cards. We are playing 2 of the Earth Destroying Blows, 1 Android 18 to be able to cycle cards, 1 Life Han, 2 board wipes, 2 Vegetas, 3 Brolys, 2 Meteors, or 4 Meteors, and 2 Destructive Strengths, and then 1 Goku, 1 of this Gohan, and then 2 of the Double Strike. Yeah, 2 of the Double Strike. And this Gohan is actually one of the ones that are really nice to play with the Supreme Kai, because you can combo him away, block, and get him back. So another kind of pile-ish looking deck. Doesn't look like we're totally locked down on our ratios, but hey, they got there, so congratulations to them for locking in a top 16. Next up, we've got probably one of the most bog standard Bardock decks I've ever seen. Literally 4 of every card except for a 10x Kamehameha, which is only a 2. And hey, Black's going to do what Black does. The card pool's not massive, so if you're just going to lean into that, by all means, here opting into playing the vanilla 2-drop as their combo crew of choice. And that rounds out the top 16 for both Saturday and Sunday of Bandai Card Fest. A lot of expected at this top cut. A lot of blue Vegeta, a lot of droids, but decks like Bardock, which we're already having results, but breaking through even more so in this tournament is really nice to see. You love to see that black representation. No Jiren, which is no surprise with the amount of blue that's kind of running around. Jiren can definitely beat blue, but it is definitely an upward hill battle. And then, of course, we've got a couple of breakouts with the yellow Vegeta deck, which you love to see, a couple of Beerses, and a couple of Gohans. So there's definitely a little bit of room for the meta to be able to break out, but very much kind of landing where we expected it all to be. at least for now. So here's to seeing how much more we can expand on the metagame with a couple of breakout decks. A lot of it will depend on how good your Swiss RNG is and your matchups of that day, kind of just how it goes when tournaments don't have Top Cut. Let me know what you guys think of the decks down below of the tournament results. What are you guys going to be playing in the upcoming tournaments? And I'll catch you guys on our next one.